I love American tank designs of the Second World War. I think that they had some of the best tanks during the conflict. No, not including you. But I love all the other tanks that the US produced, which basically means the M4 Sherman and its variants. And there are a lot of variants. You don't believe me? Look at this list of variants. And those are just Sherman variants of the US. The Sherman was the tank that could do it all. Plus, it was reliable and relatively easy to maintain. Yes, I'm looking at you, Tiger 1. And because of the success of the Sherman, the US never really felt the urge to go down the same slope as Germany or the Soviet Union, making heavier and heavier tanks. However, there is one exception to that. The T28, the only super heavy tank built by the United States, also known online as the Doom Turtle. During the Second World War, the US Army resisted most temptations to develop heavy tanks. By 1942, they figured that their brand new medium-sized tank, the Sherman, would suffice in almost every task ahead. The development and mass production of these medium-sized tanks were seen as the key to victory. However, that didn't mean that the idea of making a super heavy tank was never discussed. The difficult encounters with the King Tiger and the Panther did tempt the Americans to start putting more points in their armor and firepower of their tank factory.
Why won't you die?
However, at the end it was not the threat of German heavy tanks that prompted the development of the T28. The thing that really worried the American Ordnance Department was gonna be the Siegfried Line. The Siegfried Line was a German defensive line that was built in the late 1930s. It ran over 630 kilometers or 390 miles from the Dutch border to the Swiss border, parallel to the French Maginot Line. It included 18,000 bunkers, tunnels and tank traps. This was gonna be a formidable obstacle, and it was determined that specialized vehicles were needed if they were gonna overcome it. So in September 1943, concept and design work began for a super heavy tank that could deal with the defenses of the Siegfried Line and other German strongholds. This super heavy tank was going to use the new T5E1 105mm cannon, which had proven very well against armor and reinforced concrete. It was also going to be a very thick boy, with 203mm of frontal armor. And just as a comparison, the King Tiger had 150mm of frontal armor. The only thing that could be a little bit closer of a comparison to this super heavy tank was the Mouse, which had 220mm of frontal armor. So yeah, in this case the Mouse still won. The Ordnance Department proposed to build 25 of these vehicles for the invasion of Europe. The army, however, didn't agree with this and proposed to first build a few test vehicles using more conventional mechanical drives, instead of the proposed electric drive. On March 1944, the design was finally approved, and it was decided that 5 test tanks would be constructed, which would then get the designation Heavy Tank T28. However, also around this time, the head developer of the Ordnance Department was getting worried about the new German tungsten carbine ammunition. According to him, 203mm of frontal armor wouldn't be enough and would leave the T28 vulnerable. His recommendation: make the front extra thick, from 203mm to a ridiculous 305mm.
Of course, pal. Whatever you think is best, I will see to it.
Making the T28's frontal armor a whopping 85mm thicker than the Mouse. Around this time the name was also changed to T95 Gun Motor Carriage, and it was also decided that they would make 3 prototypes instead of 5. With the design finalized, the Ordnance Department now had the difficult task of finding somebody capable and willing to make these 3 prototypes. After some difficulties with finding a manufacturer, the Pacific Car and Foundry Company, also known as PACCAR, was chosen to build a new T95 tank. This company already had some experience of making big things. It already built some M4A1 Shermans, the M25 tank transporter, and they even built some wings for the B-17 bomber. So like I said, they already had some experience of making ridiculously large machines. The T95 was gonna be on a whole different level. This tank design was gonna be a complete departure to anything that the Americans were already used to. It took PACCAR till June 1945 to finish the first casting of the front of the first prototype. And it wasn't until August 1945 till they completed the welding of the hull. However, at that time the fortifications of the Siegfried Line had already long been overcome. It turns out that propaganda made the defenses look a lot more formidable than they really were. And with the surrender of Japan, The Doom Turtle already found itself out of work before it even got delivered. Because of that, the planned 3 prototypes were again reduced to now just having 2 prototypes. These 2 prototype tanks were finished and were delivered to Everdeen Proving Ground. The first one on December 21st, 1945, and the second one on January 10th, 1946. And even though these 2 tanks were not going to be doing what they were designed to do, I mean, there weren't many bunkers left that needed to be destroyed in 1946, they were still very impressive vehicles. Or not, depending how you look at it. Because to build such a massive vehicle, you had to compromise in certain areas. One place that they didn't compromise, however, was the gun. The Doom Turtle was designed without a turret, in order to lower the height of the otherwise massive vehicle. The gun was placed forward, and as a result of the gun's position, castings were effectively used to shape the hull, to prevent penetration on both sides and on the front, giving the tank even more protection. For being such a massive vehicle, it would surprise you that there was only a crew of 4 needed to operate this behemoth. You had a driver and a gunner, who were positioned on the left and right side of the gun, the vehicle commander, who would be positioned behind the gunner, and the loader working in the left rear. And of course, this loader had the best job in the whole tank. With only a single loader and heavy ammunition, a rate of fire of 4 shots per minute was expected to be the maximum. The 105mm gun also only had 10 degrees of travel on each side, and an elevation of between +20 and -5 degrees. So it moved slowly and it wasn't very maneuverable. However, that was not a problem for the Doom Turtle, because anything that was in front of the Doom Turtle could easily be turned into a fine red paste. That was at least if your target couldn't move faster than an elderly man. Because the Doom Turtle got its nickname because it just also moved around like a turtle. The tank was just, let's just say, slightly underpowered. With an engine that could only produce 500 horsepower, it meant that the Doom Turtle could only go 12.9 km per hour, or 8 miles per hour.
Fucking move! Move! Move!
This slow speed was also partly because of the Doom Turtle being so goddamn heavy. The final weight of this tank was 86.2 metric tons, when fully combat loaded at least. And again, just real fast as a comparison, the King Tiger weighed around 70 ton. To help distribute this weight, they added what is probably the strangest addition to this tank. In order to reduce ground pressure, the tank had a secondary set of tracks, which could be attached and detached from the hull in approximately 2.5 hours, which is around 2.5 hours longer than Girls in Panzer made me believe.
You can't keep getting away with it!
When these extra tracks were not needed, for example during rail transport, the tracks would be linked together and towed around like a trailer. Anyway, in June 1946, the vehicle again was renamed, this time to T28 Super Heavy Tank. Testing with the 2 T28s continued to see how equipment would handle super heavy equipment. This continued until 1947, when one of the vehicles was lost due to an engine fire and was later on scrapped. However, what happened to the other Doom Turtle is much more interesting. This 86-ton behemoth was somehow lost for 27 years. But luckily for all of us, in 1974 the last existing prototype was rediscovered. Somebody found abandoned in a field at Fort Beaver in Virginia. It was somehow hidden in between some bushes. Now, how it came there and how nobody noticed an 80-ton behemoth in between some bushes for 27 years is beyond me. But this oversight probably saved the Doom Turtle from being scrapped back in the day. The tank was then exhibited at the Patton Museum of Cavalry and Armor. In 2001 it was shipped to its new home in the US Army and Cavalry Collection. And in 2017 the Doom Turtle was transported again to another facility for some refurbishments. While transporting, the Doom Turtle broke loose from the trailer carrying it. Despite rolling into a ditch, only minor damages occurred to the ditch itself. Oh, and the Doom Turtle was okay as well. But I mean, look at this thing, what did you expect? Till this day you can still find this tank at the US Army and Cavalry Collection. Thank you for watching till the end, and even with my horrible voice, I'm really sorry, I was sick these days and my voice is really fucked up. Also, if you want to see more content like this, then go check out this video, it got very little views. It's how Japan weaponized cigarettes. And if you like this kind of content, then maybe consider subscribing. Okay, that's all, see you next time, bye bye.